And welcome to Monday, October 3rd, 2016. So the materials you need for this lesson today is going to be a copy of the text The Stranger, a highlighter, and your notebook. Just a quick note, if you haven't already printed your PT1 and put a rubric on top of it and turned it into your periods folder, I need that as soon as possible. So if that hasn't happened, please email me and tell me when you will get it to me by, because technically I'm grading it on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. So, in order to get a copy of our text The Stranger, you will need to go to Google Classroom, click on the About section, go down to The Stranger text, open it, either make yourself an electronic copy so that you have all the editing abilities, or print it out. I would prefer you to print it, but some of us don't have printers at home, and so I get that. So otherwise you may highlight and annotate on your electronic copy if that's you. Okay, so pause me, get your notebook, get your highlighter, get something to write with, print, do what you need to do, and then we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to start with in class is just turn and talk to somebody. You could talk to your dog at home, you could talk to your parents, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, I don't know, and tell that person, if you saw someone standing by the side of the road on a cold, rainy night, would you stop to help? Okay, I know we've all been taught not to talk to strangers since we were like 2 years old, but what would you do? Would your emotions kind of take over, and would you pull over and let them get in your car and drive them home, or would you just keep driving? Okay, so talk to someone around you, talk to yourself, but just reflect on this. So, this is somewhat what our story is going to be about today. And I would like you to make a prediction about what the story is going to be about based on this picture, and then based on the title, The Stranger. Okay, the illustration is for the text we have in class, which you don't have in front of you right now. So again, talk to the people around you or the animals or yourself. What do you think this story will be about? So we're going to start with some notes today. And the first note that we are going to take is on this term literary device. So open up your notebook to your notes section and put literary device, colon, and write down this long definition. Go ahead and pause me while you write. Okay, you should have this in your notebook, and what I will say is that literary devices are something we're going to be talking about throughout the year, and we already have learned about a couple devices. These are just ways that authors add interest to their texts. For example, I give foreshadowing. This is a technique to create interest and add suspense. So we'll be taking a look at some literary devices today, and the first one that we're going to take notes on is personification. So please pause and write down the definition here, and then write down the bulleted example as well. Okay, so this should be in your notebook, and the way I remember personification is just by looking at the first half of the word, person, and I ignore the ification. And person, the way that helps me understand the word is because I am making a non-human object more like a person. I'm making it act like a person. So if I said the pencil jumped off the table, can a pencil jump? No, but a person can. So that's how I remember personification. All right, similes. Pause me, write down the definition and the example. All right, so similes are probably more familiar to you than personification. And similes, as you can see, compare two things using like or as. We will talk about metaphors later, but sometimes it's kind of hard to tell the difference between a simile and a metaphor because both are comparing two things. But simile is when you use like or as in your comparison. All right, the next piece of notes that we're going to be taking is on motif, and you will see that this page is blank, but go ahead and just say motif. Okay, talk to yourself again, motif. Motifs are found throughout literature, movies, probably even video games, anywhere where you could have a message, a theme, a central idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause here and we're going to read our text, The Stranger, and I'm actually going to make you guess what a motif is before I actually give you the definition. So please have a copy of The Stranger in front of you, whether it's an electronic version or a hard copy. If you are using an electronic version, then in order to highlight, go up to your little color thing here and then click on highlight so that you can have access to these colors for highlighting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read up until this point with you. Oh goodness. Okay. Okay, actually I think I'm going to read up until this point. I didn't realize. Okay. So I'm going to read up until this point with you, and you are annotating for personification, similes, and motif. So I'm going to give you the first couple personifications and similes, and then we're going to go through and talk about motif after you've had a chance to annotate and think through it on your own. So this is The Stranger by Sue Baugh. Late one Saturday night, a young man was driving home on a deserted stretch of road. He could hear the rain beating against the roof of his car. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight this, and I'm going to make a comment. This is my electronic way to annotate, and I'm going to say personification. Okay, right now we're just practicing identifying these pieces of literary devices. So this is personification because the rain cannot actually beat on the roof of the car. A human could beat on the roof of the car, but this way it gives us this image of the rain is just pouring down really hard. And so I know that because now rain has been personified, and now I have this picture of it just beating the car. Okay, his headlights cut through a cold mist that clung to the trees on either side of the road. What beautiful language. Okay, so I actually have two pieces of personification here, and I want you to find at least one. So take a second and decide what's personification, what's being personified. So if you said that the headlights are being personified because headlights can't literally cut, you are correct. And if you said the cold mist was being personified, you are correct as well, because mist can't literally cling. Okay, humans can cling, monkeys can cling, humans can cut, but headlights cannot. So we're going to keep going. In the flashes of lightning, tree branches seemed like ghostly hands grasping for his car. Ooh, okay, so just got so much figurative language here. Great. So we are at a point where we have a new type of figurative language, and this is a simile. The tree branches seemed like, so the word like is an example. That's how we know that it's a simile. So it seemed like ghostly hands grasping for his car. And you might be like, Miss Maloney, that's also personification because tree branches cannot grasp for anything. That's true. So we have 2 in 1. Nice job. He could feel the steady drum roll of thunder. What a night to be out. He shivered and wished he were safe at home. Ooh, okay. So let's go ahead and choose a new color for the word shivered. I like green. Okay, so I don't know exactly what a motif is yet, if I'm you, but this is where I'm going to start giving you some clues about what a motif could be. So every time you hit a word in this story that has a cold kind of feeling to it, like shivered, obviously you're kind of cold if you shiver. I want you to highlight it. Anything that seems like it makes you think of something cold, I want you to highlight and just comment motif. Fabulous. And also, I think it's worth commenting on, this is foreshadowing. He wished he were safe at home. Is he not safe now? Okay, this is my thought, like, oh, you're telling me he's not safe then if he would be safer at home. Suddenly, as he rounded a curve, his headlights lit up a young woman standing by the side of the road. Her hair and white dress were soaked from the rain. She looked so alone. He couldn't just leave her there. The young man skidded to a stop, then backed up until he could see her face in the window. He leaned over and opened the door. Would you like a ride? She nodded and he reached out his hand to help her into the car. He shivered. Oh shoot, what do I need to do here? I'm going to go to my green highlighter, comment, motif. At her touch, her hand was so cold. You know what we're doing. Fabulous. So I said I was going to stop there, right? So I want you to read the rest of this on your own. I want you to pause me, and as you read, you are highlighting for personification, similes, motifs, or foreshadowing, because there's plenty of that too. So give this a read through, highlight, annotate, pause me, go. Okay. So you should have your page marked up much more than I do. And by this point, you figured out that the stranger is dead. You figured out that the girl was actually a ghost, and that she came back a year later on the exact day that she died to meet this young man and have a little, I don't know, something. So the idea of motif, you probably found many more examples of this cold idea of her being cold. And so my question to you is, what do all of those cold references help you understand about her? And in class, I would have asked for ideas. We would have had a conversation, but I can't do that with you because really I'm just talking to myself. So the idea is that she's cold. She's not warm-blooded anymore because she's dead. So all of the references, the repeated ideas of coldness help us understand this idea, this message that the girl's not alive. It's another way to hint to the reader about a really important idea in the text. So I want you to write down somewhere in your notes, probably under motif, your idea, your definition of motif. If we know that it's a repeated idea that helps us understand something about the text, how would you put that into your own words, and what would you say about motif? Give it a second. Go ahead and write it down. Okay, so hopefully you have something that looks kind of like this. If it's similar, no need to erase or anything. I just want to make sure that you have that. A motif is a repeated idea that helps the reader understand the central idea, theme, or message in the text. So in this case, here's my example that I want you to write in your notebook. The idea of coldness in the stranger helps the reader understand that the goodness gracious, the stranger is dead. Okay, so in this case, it's a message. The repeated idea of coldness gives us a message that this girl's not alive. She doesn't have warm blood anymore. So that's motif, and we're going to be looking at motif a lot throughout the year. So make sure this is in your text and make sure you really understand what a motif is. All right, the next portion to our note-taking and activity is to do name it, verb it, finish it, aka NVF. So this is a lot of note-taking here. I know it's kind of a full slide, but please pause me and take notes on this whole slide. Name it, verb it, finish it. Okay, so this should be in your notebooks, and you will see that when you name it, this is a way to structure the first sentence of a paragraph if you were being asked to summarize a text, give the central idea to a text, or write a paragraph about the theme of the text. So this would kind of be the controlling idea sentence in that paragraph. So the way you structure it is you name the text first. So here's my example. The Monkey's Paw by W.W. Jacobs shows, that's my verb, that being greedy can lead to bad consequences. So I put it all together in one fluid sentence, and here we go. This is the name it, verb it, finish it sentence of The Monkey's Paw. Okay, I want to pause and I want to talk about this verb. Now, we haven't talked about the parts of speech. I'm not going to do that. We haven't talked about the parts of speech in class, but verbs are actions. So running, jumping, singing, talking, those are actions. Somebody is doing something. Authors can use figurative language to show, showing is a verb, they're doing something, the message, the main idea, or the theme of their story. So instead of shows, I could have said explains. That's a verb, that's an action. He's explaining. Okay, I could have said tells. There's so many different verbs that I could have chosen here, but I thought that W.W. Jacobs did a great job of using figurative language and creating a picture in my mind, which is why I used the verb shows. We'll talk more about NVF later and throughout the year, so if you're a little shaky on it now, that's okay. Go ahead and give it a practice run here. So using NVF, write a sentence explaining the main idea of The Stranger. So remember, you're going to name it. That's the title, The Stranger, by the author. You're going to choose your verb. I'm going to give you some verb examples here. Shows, tells, explains, depicts. These are all words that you could use for the verb part. And then the main idea. So you're going to have to give me the most important events in the story, and this is going to flow real nicely in a solid sentence. So you're going to write this just right underneath your notes for Name It, Verb It, Finish It in your notebook, so you have another example. And then I want you to show me what you came up with when you come back to class so that I can see whether you got the hang of it or not. And again, we're going to go over this more this year, so you have lots of practice kind of structuring your sentences like this. Okay, so that's it for right now. I hope this lesson was interesting and you were able to follow along well. Again, please show me your work tomorrow. Share a copy of your annotated text with me, whether it's a hard copy or electronic. I need to see it. And I will see you soon.